12. I am Janice Cobham, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government to evacuate Nigerians stranded in Sudan by road. Cape Sudan battles. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and many thanks for joining us on Spectrum News at 12. First in the news this afternoon is a report that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Nyema, commissioned. The Foreign Affairs Minister explained that the country's situation is particularly challenging due to the large number of 5,500 people to be. Meanwhile, the federal government has insisted that Nigerian students in Sudan should remain indoors while it continues making arrangements for their safe evacuation from the country. A statement by the Embassy of the by the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, in Sudan, calling on students to converge at the African International University, NANS office, and El Razi University for evacuation or bring the sun without security clearance and guarantee from the Sudanese authorities. The embassy also reassured the Nigerian students that their safety and well-being, has said that it is seeking appropriate window of opportunity to evacuate all stranded Nigerians back home in a safe and dignified manner from war-torn Sudan. The agency noted that the move became imperative due to what it described as widespread public concern on the situation in Sudan, especially with regards to the ongoing conflict. Manzo Ezekiel revealed that a committee had been set up comprising professional emergency responders, search and rescue experts to constantly evaluate the situation and seek for the safest way to evacuate the Nigerian citizens from Sudan. National Blood Service Commission Dr. Omale Ahmedu disclosed this in a press statement signed by the Commission's head of media and publicity, Haruna Abdullahi. The committee, which is made up of members from the Commission, government agencies and non-governmental organizations, including the World Health Organization, on the importance of blood donation, is scheduled to take place on June 14, 2023. Engineering and Construction Limited and the project manager of Saipem Constructing Nigeria Limited to appear before it over alleged unfair labor practices against Nigerian workers engaged in the construction, and the managing director of Seco Construction and Leasing Company to appear before it on May 2, 2023 over the same matter. Reports say there had been a prolonged industrial dispute between the Nigerian liquefied natural gas Train 7 EPC firm. Daewoo Engineering was demanding fair labor practices in line with international best practices from the South Korean firm. Recall that the national president of NAPO, Harold Benstowe, and other members of the union were arrested, detained and arraigned over alleged obstruction of work in October 2022. Which was inaugurated in October to campaign for the victory of the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and his running mate Kashim Shettima in the build-up of the 2023 presidential elections. The dissolution was contained in a statement that was jointly signed by the PCC Director General support for the APC presidential candidate throughout the electioneering campaign. The Plateau State Governor also appreciated all the members of the PCC and supporters of the party for working assiduously for the resounding victory of President-elect. Recall that Buhari had presided over the unveiling of the Presidential Campaign Council at the State House in Abuja. On electoral matters now, the Commissioner for Information and Voter Education of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Festus Okoye, has said that the Commission lacks the power to declare wanted its resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa, Hudu Ari. Okoye noted that the Commission has written officially to the Inspector General of Police detailing some of the infractions that would help the police arrest the wreck. Recall that the REC had announced the result of Adamawa supplementary elections poll and declared the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Aishatu Dahiru, as the winner of the poll. To set up a presidential panel of inquiry to promptly probe the grime allegations that over 149 million barrels of crude oil are missing, as documented in the 2019 auditor reports by the auditor prosecution of anyone suspected to be responsible for the plundering of the country's oil wealth and the full recovery of any proceeds of crime. In the letter signed by SERAP's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadari, the organization said there was a legitimate public interest in ensuring justice and accountability for the very serious allegations. Meanwhile, according to the 2019 auditor reports by the Auditor General, over 107 million barrels of crude oil were lifted in 2019. In education now, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board (JAM) has said it would continue the registration of direct entry until after the conduct of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination and the National Census. Had the opportunity to register, provided they comply with the board's directive and within the stipulated time frame. He said the direct entry registration was initially scheduled to close on Thursday, April 20, but was extended to continue till Saturday, May 6, when the 2023 UT so that they obtained their e-pins from designated vending outlets on or before April 30, when e-pins vending would be closed. According to Benjamin, candidates are then expected to proceed to the board's offices from Saturday, April 6, to Saturday, Africa, where Pope Francis has called for dialogue between warring military factions in Sudan as fighting entered a second week. The pontiff said this during a traditional prayer in Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's forces and the rival Rapid Support Forces RSF of his former deputy Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo began on April 15 over a dispute on the planned integration of the RSF into the regular said, as reportedly deploying a team of disaster response experts to coordinate a humanitarian response in Sudan amid fighting between rival army factions. The agency's head, Samantha Power, said that the experts would work with the international partners to identify priority needs. Power emphasized calls by the international community for a ceasefire and end to the bloodshed. On our foreign scene now, U.S. President Joe Biden says troops had swooped in on helicopters to evacuate embassy staff from Sudan's battle-torn capital as other nations sought to help their citizens. Condemned the violence, saying it is unconscionable and must stop. Meanwhile, France has also launched evacuation operations from the northeast. Major defense review says Australia is set to speed up efforts to buy longer-range missiles to counter the growing threats from China. It warns that the country can no longer be protected by its geographic isolations. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the review would shape the future rather than waiting for the future to shape the country, and its recommendations would make Australia more self-reliant, prepared, and more power and mobility it needs into the future. And still to come in the news, Manchester United beats Brighton on penalties to reach the nation's multiple exchange rate windows and carry out a number of other reforms to strengthen the economy and restore macroeconomic stability. The Washington-based lender, who made this known in its latest macro poverty outlook for Nigeria, said it is by the federal government. The bank noted that worsening economic environment in the country had pushed millions of Nigerians into poverty through chronically high inflation that has been on the rise since 2019, especially for food items, eroding the purchasing power of poor and vulnerable Nigerians. It added that the inflation reached an annual average 5 million Nigerians into poverty. Still in business now, oil marketers have asked the federal government to of 11 PLC and former chairman of the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, Tunji Oyebanji, while speaking with newsmen on the sidelines of the just concluded Nigerian International Energy Summit in Abuja, said implementation of a transition plan ahead of the handing over of government by the current administration would help guard against confusion in the downstream sector. Oyebanji noted that foreign exchange should be released to marketers 6 or 8 weeks before subsidies are removed to enable them get petrol. We move now to health, where the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives Federal Health Institution sector has decried the exclusion of its members in the recent Fani Morakinyo Real One. Real One said nurses and other health workers had been calling for salary adjustments since 2016, with several committees set up to the effect, but nothing had been done. The association leader added that instead of the government taking advantage of the pay rise to motivate health workers who have stayed in the country to salvage the health system, it has rather excluded them from the benefits. NCDC has said that the National Multi-Sectoral Cerebrospinal Meningitis Technical Working Group will continue to monitor response to the disease across states. According to its official reported, while 118 deaths from 22 states and 79 local government areas were recorded. The health organization expressed worries that meningitis had killed 23 persons in 1 week between March 27 and April 2, noting that the deaths were reported. We move now to sports, where Manchester United has set up a first FA Cup final against Manchester City after beating Brighton in a tense penalty shootout at a rain-lashed Wembley Stadium. In a match that finished goalless after extra time, it fell to United defender Victor Lindelof to score the decisive sport kick after Solly March sent his efforts high over the bar. In the scrappy semi-finals that fell short of expectations, both goalkeepers excelled, with David De Gea making several fine saves at 11 successful penalties before Lindelof stepped up to set up an all-Manchester encounter back at the National Stadium. And still in sports, Newcastle United humiliated Tottenham Hotspur showdown for a top 4 spot. Jacob Murphy and Alexander Isak each scored twice, and Jolinton added another as Newcastle sieged through a porous visiting defense that was already under the spotlight from last week's defeat against Bournemouth. Harry Kane pulled one back in the second half at St James Park, but Callum Wilson added a 6th shortly after qualification, while the Magpies are now in a commanding position to finish in the top 4 as they climb to 3rd. On entertainment news, Nigerian disc jockey Taylor. The rumors reportedly started after the billionaire daughter posted a video of herself dancing with her belly slightly protruded. Responding to one of her followers' question on whether she is pregnant, Copy said she only has a belly. And lastly this afternoon, The actor, who stated this during an Instagram live session, said the recent trend is the major reason Nollywood has not been able to attain its full potential. The thespian lamented the invasion of amateurry. And that's all we have for you on Spectrum News this afternoon. Do well to follow us on all our social media handles and ensuring this channel is covered. Do enjoy the rest of our programs.